I didn't hear the engine first. I smelled it. Burnt diesel, thick and sour, rolling through my open window before the sound hit. Then came the vibration. Low, heavy, the kind that shakes glass before it shakes your nerves. I stepped onto my porch barefoot, gravel biting into my skin, and that's when I saw it. A yellow excavator, parked halfway onto my land. Its steel arm already digging into the edge of my property like it belonged there. Dirt curled up in thick, dark ribbons. My fence line gone. Just snapped posts and loose wire lying like broken ribs in the dust. "Hey," I shouted, my voice cutting through the morning. The operator didn't even look at me. The machine kept moving. Slow, confident, like I didn't exist. That's when she stepped into view. Clipboard, sunglasses, perfect posture. Linda Harper, HOA president. She stood on my land like she owned it, one hand resting on her hip, the other flipping a page like she was checking off a grocery list. "You're trespassing," I said, walking straight toward her. I could feel my pulse in my ears now, sharp and steady. She didn't flinch, just gave me that smile. The kind that looks polite until you realize it's not. "Community drainage project," she said, calm as ever. "This area falls under HOA infrastructure improvement." I stopped about 10 feet from her, looked past her. The trench they were cutting ran straight across my boundary line. My land. 12 acres I bought specifically to stay out of HOA control. "No," I said. "It doesn't." She tapped her clipboard. "You're behind on dues, Ethan. We've sent multiple notices." I actually laughed. Not because it was funny, because it didn't make sense. "I'm not in your HOA." The excavator paused for a second, then kept digging. Like my words didn't matter. Linda tilted her head just slightly. "Everything in this valley is part of our managed community now." That word, now, sat wrong in my chest. Like a door had closed somewhere, and I didn't hear it happen. I looked back at the trench. The dirt. My fence. Gone. "Who gave you permission to do this?" I asked. She didn't answer right away. Just flipped another page. "You should have reviewed your documents more carefully when you purchased the property." There it was. That shift. From polite to pressure. I felt something tighten in my chest, but I kept my voice level. "Stop the machine." She didn't even turn around. Just raised 2 fingers slightly. The excavator kept going. Louder now. Dirt hitting metal. Metal hitting stone. I took another step forward. "I'm serious. Shut it down." The operator finally looked at me, then at her, then back at the trench, and kept digging. That's when I realized something. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't confusion. This was confidence. They believed they had the right. And that made it dangerous. Because people who think they're right don't stop when you tell them to. They stop when you prove them wrong. I pulled my phone out, hand steady now. Started recording. The engine. The trench. Linda is standing on my land like she owned the place. "You're going to want to stop," I said, quieter this time. She smiled again. Same smile. "Or what?" I looked her dead in the eye. "Or you're going to wish you had proof." She didn't blink. Just turned slightly and pointed to the trench. "We already do." That's when I knew this wasn't going to end with a conversation. This was going to be a fight. Not loud, not messy, but precise. Paper, boundaries, signatures. The kind of fight most people lose before they even realize they're in it. And standing there, barefoot in the dirt, watching my land get carved up in front of me, I made a decision. I wasn't going to argue. I was going to document everything. Because if there's one thing I learned the hard way, it's this. People can say whatever they want. But paper doesn't lie. Where are you watching from? Drop a comment below, because what happened next turned a quiet piece of land into the biggest HOA mistake I've ever seen. I stood there for a few seconds after the excavator kept moving, just listening. The metal scraping. The engine humming like it had all the time in the world. My fence was already halfway gone, and the trench was cutting deeper by the second. I did not yell again. I did not argue. I just turned around, walked back to my house, and grabbed my folder. It was sitting right where I left it when I moved in 3 months ago. Closing documents. Property deed. Survey map. All the boring stuff most people never read twice. I flipped it open right there on my kitchen counter, hands still dusty, heart still racing, but my head was starting to slow down. That is the thing about moments like this. The louder everything gets outside, the quieter you need to get inside. I spread the papers out one by one. Warranty deed. Legal description. Parcel number. Then the survey. 12 acres. Clean boundary lines. No shaded areas. No shared zones. No HOA markings. Nothing. I remember the day I bought this place. The agent had said it twice, like it was the selling point. No HOA. You are completely outside their jurisdiction. That was the whole reason I paid extra. Privacy. Control. Peace. I traced the boundary line with my finger, following it all the way to the edge where that trench was now being dug. My land. No question about it. So how were they standing out there acting like they owned it? I grabbed my laptop and pulled up the county property records. Slow internet, spinning wheel, the usual. But then it loaded. Parcel map. Same lines. Same shape. No HOA overlay. I zoomed out. The subdivision next to me lit up in a neat, clean block. Willow Creek Estates. That was Linda's territory. Perfect rows. Perfect lawns. Perfect control. And then there was my land. Just outside it. Like a piece that never got added to the puzzle. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the screen. Something was not adding up. They were not guessing. People like Linda do not guess. They act when they think they are right. Or when they think you will not fight back. I went back outside. The trench was longer now. Maybe 20 feet. Dirt piled up like a wall along the side. Linda was still there, talking on her phone like this was just another normal morning. I walked straight up to her again, but this time I did not raise my voice. Show me, I said. She looked at me over her sunglasses. Show you what? The document, I said. The one that says you have authority over my land. She paused for half a second. Just half. But I saw it. That tiny delay. It is all filed with the HOA. She said. You would have received it. I shook my head. No. I would have signed it. She smiled again, but it was tighter now. Sometimes properties get annexed into community management zones. It is standard. Annexed. That word again. It sounded official. Complicated. Like something buried in paperwork nobody reads. Then it should be easy, I said. Print it. Show me my signature. The excavator slowed down behind us, like even the operator was listening now. Linda lowered her phone. I do not need to prove anything to you right now. That was the second crack. Small, but real. I nodded slowly. Okay. I turned and walked back toward my house again. But this time I already knew what I was going to do. Because this was not about yelling at a machine or arguing with a clipboard. This was about something else. If they really had authority, it would be on paper. Signed. Filed. Recorded. And if they did not, then everything they were doing out here was just noise backed by confidence. And confidence without proof is just a bluff waiting to collapse. I stepped inside, grabbed my scanner, my notebook, and a fresh pen. If they wanted to play this game, I was going to play it the only way that matters. Line by line. Document by document. Because out there, they had the machine. But in here, I had the truth. And I was about to find out which one actually mattered. I spent the next hour building a timeline on my kitchen table like I was solving a puzzle that someone else tried to scramble. Every document I owned was laid out in front of me, edges lined up, pages weighted down with a coffee mug so they would not slide. Purchase agreement. Title insurance. County tax record. Everything said the same thing in slightly different ways. My land stood alone. No HOA. No shared management. No hidden clause. Clean. Simple. Mine. And yet, outside, they were still digging like none of that mattered. I pulled up the county zoning office number and hit call. It rang longer than it should have. Finally, a woman picked up. Zoning department, this is Karen. I let out a breath. Hi. I need to confirm something about my property boundary and whether it falls under any HOA. Jurisdiction. She sounded tired but polite. What is your parcel number? I read it off slowly, double-checking each digit. I could hear her typing on the other end, keys clicking in a steady rhythm. A few seconds passed. Then a few more. Okay, she said. I see your parcel. That property is not part of any registered HOA. I closed my eyes for a second. Not relief. Not yet. Just confirmation. So there is no annexation or community overlay. I asked. She paused. Not on record. If there was, it would be filed here. It is not. I nodded even though she could not see me. Thank you. I hung up and stared at the phone for a second. That was it. That was the line. Everything Linda was doing outside was not backed by the county. Which meant one thing. Either she had some private agreement I had never seen, or she was counting on me not knowing this call existed. I grabbed my keys and drove down the road about half a mile to the edge of Willow Creek Estates. You could feel the difference before you even saw the sign. Lawns trimmed like carpets. Mailboxes all matching. Quiet streets that felt controlled. I parked by the clubhouse and got out. A couple was walking their dog nearby. I gave a small nod. Hey, quick question, I said. Do you guys get HOA notices regularly? The man laughed like I had asked if the sun came up in the morning. Every week, he said. Sometimes twice. I held up my phone. Do they ever send you official documents when they change rules or boundaries? The woman shook her head. No, it is usually just letters. Sometimes emails. I felt something click into place. Not a big realization, just a quiet one. They were used to being told things, not shown things. I thanked them and walked back to my truck, mine moving faster now. This was not about one trench or one bill. This was a pattern. Linda was operating on assumption. Authority by repetition. Say it enough times, act like it is true, and most people will not question it. I drove back home and pulled into my driveway. The excavator was gone. The trench was there though, a long scar across the edge of my land. Linda's car was still parked near the gate. I stepped out and walked over slowly. She looked up as I approached, like she had been expecting me. I spoke with the county, I said. No anger, no rush, just clear. Her expression did not change, but her eyes sharpened slightly. And, she asked, they have no record of any HOA jurisdiction over my property. Silence. Just for a second. The kind of silence that feels heavier than noise. Then she smiled again, but it was thinner now. County records are not always up to date, she said. I nodded slowly. Then this should be easy, I replied. Send me the official document. The one that proves you have authority here. She crossed her arms lightly. We will get that to you. I watched her for a second. Then I said something I had not planned, but it came out steady. Good. Because until I see it, every foot of that trench is on you. That landed. I could see it. Not fear. Not yet. But awareness. I turned and walked back toward my house, gravel crunching under my boots, the air still carrying that faint diesel smell. Behind me, I heard her phone dial again. Fast this time. And that is when I knew. She did not already have the proof. She was about to go looking for it. And sometimes, that is the moment everything starts to fall apart. I did not sleep much that night. Not because I was scared, but because my brain would not turn off. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that trench. That clean, straight line cutting into my land like someone drawing a boundary that did not exist. By morning, the air felt different. Cooler. Quieter. But something else was there too. Tension. The kind you cannot see, but you know it is waiting. I stepped outside with my coffee, and the first thing I noticed was the car. Not Linda's. A different one. Dark gray sedan parked just off the road. Engine off. Windows cracked. Someone inside. Watching. I did not walk toward it. I just stood there for a second, letting the moment settle. Then I took a slow sip of coffee and walked along the edge of the trench instead, measuring it with my steps. 1, 2, 3. It ran almost 30 feet now. Deeper than yesterday. Clean cut. Planned. This was not some rush job. This had been approved by someone. Or at least, someone wanted it to look that way. I heard a car door open behind me. Soft. Careful. I turned slightly. A man stepped out of the sedan. Mid-40s maybe. Polo shirt. Sunglasses. The kind of guy who tries to look official without wearing a uniform. He walked up with a folder in his hand. Not a clipboard like Linda. A folder. That caught my attention. Ethan Cole, he asked. I nodded. Yeah. He held the folder up slightly. I am here on behalf of Willow Creek Estates Homeowners Association. His voice was smooth. Practiced. Like he had said this many times before. We understand there is some confusion regarding your property status. Confusion. I almost smiled. I am not confused, I said. Good, he replied quickly. Then this should be simple. He opened the folder and pulled out a stack of papers. Clean. Fresh. Printed recently. I could tell by the edges. He handed them to me. This outlines the community expansion and infrastructure inclusion that affects your parcel. I took the papers but did not look down right away. I watched him instead. His posture. His hands. Calm. Too calm. When was this filed? I asked. He did not hesitate. It has been part of the community plan for some time. Not an answer. I looked down at the first page. Big title. Community Integration Notice. No county stamp. No recording number. Just text. A lot of it. I flipped to the second page. Then the third. It talked about shared drainage. Community benefit. Long-term value. It sounded official if you did not know what to look for. But something was missing. Actually, a lot of things were missing. I looked back up. Where is the filing record? I asked. He blinked once. Excuse me. The county record, I said, tapping the paper. The document number. The recording stamp. The signature. He shifted his weight slightly. Just a small move, but it was there. This is internal documentation, he said. Internal does not change property lines, I replied. His jaw tightened just a little. Not much, but enough. The HOA has authority to manage infrastructure that benefits the broader community, he said. I nodded slowly. On HOA land, I said. Not mine. There it was again. That pause. Same as Linda yesterday. Half a second. Then he smiled. Different smile this time. Not fake friendly. More controlled. We are trying to resolve this cooperatively, he said. I looked back down at the papers, flipping through them one more time. Still no signature. No official seal. Nothing tying it to me. Or to the county. Just words. Carefully chosen words. I handed the stack back to him. This does not prove anything, I said. He did not take it right away. Just looked at me for a second. Then he accepted it slowly. We can escalate this if necessary, he said. I nodded. Please do. That surprised him. I could see it. People usually back down at that point. They hear escalate and think trouble. But I was already past that. I pointed to the trench. Until you show me something real, I said. Everything out here is your liability. The word landed heavier than anything else I had said. Liability. He knew what it meant. Cost. Risk. Paper trail. He closed the folder carefully, like he was buying time with the motion. We will be in touch, he said. I shrugged lightly. I will be here. He turned and walked back to his car, steps just a little faster than before. Not running, but not relaxed either. The engine started. The sedan pulled away. And just like that, the quiet came back. But it was not the same quiet as before. This one had weight to it. Because now I knew for sure. They did not have proof. They had paperwork. And those are not the same thing. I looked back at the trench, the dirt still loose along the edges, the line they had tried to draw across my land. And for the first time since this started, I was not reacting anymore. I was waiting. Because when people start bringing weak paper into a strong fight, they usually do not realize how exposed they really are. By late afternoon, the wind picked up just enough to carry dust across the trench, softening the edges they had cut that morning. It almost looked natural from a distance, like it had always been there. That bothered me more than the digging itself. Because that is how things get taken. Not all at once. Little by little, until it looks normal. I walked the full length again, slower this time, recording everything on my phone. Every inch. Every angle. I zoomed in on the broken fence posts, the fresh soil, the tire tracks from the excavator. I even measured the width using my tape, calling it out loud so it was on video. 3 feet, 8 inches, consistent across the line. My voice sounded calm, almost boring. That was the point. Facts do not need emotion. They just need to be clear. Halfway through recording, I noticed something new. Small orange flags. Planted along the trench. Not random. Evenly spaced. Survey markers. I crouched down and looked closer. No labels. No company name. Just plain flags pushed into my dirt. That was interesting. Real survey work always leaves a trace. A name. A number. Something you can follow. This was just for show. I stood up and looked toward the road. Linda's car was gone now. The gray sedan too. But the flags stayed. Like they wanted me to see them. Like they wanted me to think this had been done properly. I finished recording and headed back inside. Dust still clinging to my boots. The house felt quiet, but not empty. Focused. I sat down at the table again, pulled my laptop closer, and opened a new document. If they were going to play this game, I was going to document every move. Time. Date. Action. Evidence. I started typing. Day 1. Unauthorized excavation observed at 6:12 a.m. I paused for a second, thinking, then kept going. Every detail I could remember. The smell. The sound. Linda's exact words. The man with the folder. The missing county stamp. Everything. Because memory fades. Paper does not. About an hour later, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I let it ring once. Twice. Then picked up. Hello. There was a brief pause, then a voice I recognized. Linda. Ethan, she said, smooth again. We are working on getting you the documentation you requested. I leaned back in my chair, eyes on the screen in front of me. Okay. She hesitated slightly, like she expected more from me. In the meantime, she continued, we expect you to refrain from interfering with ongoing community work. I almost smiled at that. On my property? I asked. Silence. Just for a beat. Then she said, this benefits everyone in the area. I tapped my pen lightly against the table. Once. Twice. That is not how ownership works, I said. Her tone shifted, just a little. Less friendly. More firm. You are making this more difficult than it needs to be. I let that sit for a second before answering. No, I said. I am making it clear. Another pause. Longer this time. Then she said, we will be in touch, and hung up. I set the phone down slowly. That call told me everything I needed to know. They were still trying to control the situation with words. Still hoping I would back down if they sounded confident enough. But confidence was starting to crack. You could hear it between the sentences. I turned back to my laptop and added a new line. 3:47 p.m. phone call from HOA president. No documentation provided. Then I opened a second tab and started drafting something else. Not notes this time. A formal request. Clear. Direct. Written the way lawyers write when they want answers, not conversation. I typed slowly, choosing each word like it mattered. Because it did. Please provide recorded documentation establishing HOA jurisdiction over parcel. I stopped for a second, then added. Failure to provide such documentation will be considered acknowledgement of no legal authority. I read it twice, then once more. Simple, clean, no emotion, just facts and consequences. I printed it out, signed it, and slipped it into an envelope. Tomorrow morning, I would hand it to them in person. No emails, no phone calls. Paper. Because once something is written, it cannot be taken back. I stood up and looked out the window again. The trench sat there in the fading light, quiet now. Still, but it did not feel like damage anymore. It felt like evidence. And that changes everything. Because damage can be ignored. But evidence builds. And I was just getting started. I woke up before the sun came up, not because I had to, but because my brain was already moving. That letter I wrote sat on the table where I left it, clean and simple inside a plain white envelope. No logos, no threats, just facts. I picked it up, felt the weight of it in my hand, and for a second I thought about how strange this whole thing was. A piece of paper was about to do more than anything I said out loud yesterday. I stepped outside and the air was still. No machines, no cars, just quiet land and that trench cutting across it like a line someone hoped I would accept. I walked to the edge again, looked down into it, and noticed something new. Water. Not much. Just a thin layer pooling at the bottom from overnight moisture. It reflected the sky in a dull gray strip. That caught my attention, because now it was not just dirt anymore. It was function. They were building something, not just marking territory. I turned and headed toward the road, envelope in hand, boots crunching steady against the gravel. I did not have to wait long. At exactly 8:03 a.m., Linda's SUV rolled up like it always did, smooth and controlled. Right behind her, the same gray sedan from yesterday. 2 cars. 2 people. Same plan. Linda stepped out first, sunglasses already on, clipboard in hand like it was part of her arm. The man from yesterday followed, carrying that same folder. I walked straight up to them before they could say a word. Morning, I said, holding out the envelope. Linda looked at it, then at me. What is this? She asked. Your proof request, I said. In writing. She hesitated, then took it slowly, like she was not sure what she was about to open. The man leaned slightly closer, watching. Linda opened the envelope, pulled the paper out, and started reading. I watched her eyes move across the page, line by line. The calm look on her face did not disappear, but it changed. Just a little, tighter around the edges. When she reached the last line, she stopped. No flipping the page. No quick response. Just stillness. Then she handed it to the man without a word. He read it faster. Much faster. His eyes moved quick, but I could see the moment it hit him. That sentence. The one about failure to provide documentation being considered acknowledgement of no authority. He looked up at me, then at Linda. We cannot sign this, he said quietly. I shrugged lightly. You do not have to sign it, I replied. You just have to respond. Linda took the paper back, folding it once, very carefully. We will review this with our legal team, she said. Her voice was steady, but there was something under it now. Not confidence. Not control. Pressure. I nodded. Good idea. The man cleared his throat slightly. In the meantime, work will continue, he said, gesturing toward the trench. I shook my head slowly. That is your call, I said. But every inch of that work is now documented. And every day you do not provide proof. I let the sentence hang for a second. He finished it in his head. I could see it. Liability. Again. Linda adjusted her sunglasses, even though the sun was still low. Small movement. Buying time. You are making a mistake, she said. I looked at her calm. No, I said. I am making a record. That landed harder than anything else I had said. Because records do not argue. They do not forget. They just sit there until someone has to answer for them. The man closed his folder slowly this time. No rush. Linda did not say anything else. She turned, walked back to her SUV, and got in without another word. The gray sedan followed right after. Engine started. Both cars pulled away, slower than yesterday. I stood there for a moment, envelope gone from my hand, but something else in its place. Control. Not loud, not obvious, but real. I looked back at the trench again, that thin strip of water still sitting at the bottom, reflecting the sky. Yesterday, it looked like damage. Today, it looked like evidence building itself. And the thing about evidence is, it does not need to be forced. It just needs time. And for the first time since this started, I was not reacting anymore. I was setting the pace. And they knew it. The next 2 days were quiet. Too quiet. No machines. No new flags. No letters in my mailbox. Just silence sitting on the land like something was waiting. I did not trust it. Silence after pressure usually means one thing. Someone is thinking. I kept my routine the same. Morning coffee on the porch. Walk the trench. Record everything. Add notes. Same timestamps. Same calm voice. Day 3. No new activity. Water level slightly higher. Soil edges starting to settle. It felt almost boring saying it out loud, but that was the point. Boring builds truth. On the third afternoon, something changed. A white pickup truck rolled up slowly, not like the others. No sudden stop. No confidence. Just slow, careful movement. County seal on the door. That made me stand up. The driver stepped out. Older guy, maybe late 50s, wearing a hat that had seen better days. He looked at the trench first. Not me. That told me everything. He was here for the land, not the story. You Ethan? He asked. Yeah, I said, walking over. He nodded toward the trench. Got a call about unauthorized ground disturbance. I almost smiled. Not because it was funny, because it was the first real shift. That would be them, I said, pointing toward the direction of the subdivision. He crouched down, picked up a handful of dirt, let it fall through his fingers. Then he looked at the flags. No survey tags, he muttered. He stood up and wiped his hands on his jeans. You give permission for this? No, I said. Simple. Clear. He nodded slowly, like he expected that answer. Then he pulled out a small notepad and started writing. Not fast. Not rushed. Just steady. The kind of writing that becomes a record. They say you are part of their drainage plan, he said without looking up. They said a lot of things, I replied. He gave a small grunt, almost like a quiet laugh. Yeah, people do that. He walked the length of the trench, measuring with his steps the same way I had. Then he stopped halfway, looking out toward my fence line. Or what was left of it. You got your property lines documented? He asked. On paper and on file, I said. He nodded again. Good. He closed his notepad and looked at me directly for the first time. His eyes were not suspicious. Not friendly either. Just fair. Here is how this works, he said. If they do not have recorded authorization, they should not be touching your land. Period. Hearing that out loud hit different. Not because I did not already know it, but because now it came from someone who did not have a stake in this fight. What happens next? I asked. He looked back at the trench, then at the road. I am going to file a report, he said. They will get a notice. They will have to respond. I nodded slowly. And if they cannot, he shrugged slightly. Then it becomes a bigger problem for them. He did not need to say more. Bigger problem meant fines. Legal issues. Paper trails they could not erase. He started walking back to his truck, then paused. You did the right thing documenting, he added. Most people just argue. That does not help. I watched him for a second, then said, I figured paper works better than shouting. He gave a small smile at that. Always does. He got into the truck, started the engine, and drove off the same slow way he came. I stood there alone again, looking at the trench, but it felt different now. Not like something done to me. More like something that had just been seen. Verified. Put on record. I walked back toward the house, pulling my phone out and adding a new note. Day 3. County inspection completed. No authorization confirmed on site. My voice stayed calm as I recorded it, but inside, something shifted. This was no longer just me against them. Now the system was starting to look. And once that happens, the game changes. Because you can bluff a person. You can pressure a neighbor. But you cannot bluff a record once it starts building itself. And right now, it was building fast. The next morning, I knew something had changed before I even stepped outside. It was the sound. Not machines. Not engines. Voices. Low at first, like people trying not to be heard. I opened the door slowly, the wood creaking just enough to announce me, and stepped onto the porch. There were 3 cars parked along the road now. Not just Linda's SUV. Not just that gray sedan. 2 more. Different people. Different energy. And right there, standing near the trench, was Linda. No sunglasses this time. Clipboard still in hand, but she was not writing. She was talking. Fast. The man with the folder stood beside her, arms crossed, listening. And next to them, the county inspector from yesterday. That stopped me for half a second. Then I walked down, steady, same pace as always, gravel crunching under my boots like a metronome. Linda saw me first. Of course she did. Her voice cut off mid-sentence, and the group turned slightly toward me. No one waved. No one smiled. Good. That meant we were past pretending. Morning, I said calm. The inspector nodded at me. We are reviewing the situation, he said. Simple. Neutral. But different from yesterday. Yesterday, he was observing. Today, he was involved. Linda stepped forward just a bit, like she needed to regain ground. We have documentation, she said, holding up a new set of papers. Not the same ones as before. These were thicker. More pages. More effort. I did not reach for them. Not yet. From where? I asked. She hesitated, just for a second. Our legal team, she said. That was not the question I asked. I looked at the inspector instead. He did not move. Just watched. That told me everything. This was their moment. Their attempt to fix what they could not prove yesterday. I took the papers from Linda finally, flipping them open slowly. Page 1. Same title style. Different wording. More complex. Page 2. References to adjacent impact zones. Page 3. Still no county stamp. Still no recording number. I flipped faster now. Page 4. Page 5. Lots of words. No authority. I looked up at her. This is still not filed, I said. Her jaw tightened. It outlines the scope of community impact, she replied. I shook my head once. That is not ownership. The man with the folder stepped in then. You are interpreting this too narrowly, he said. His tone was sharper now, less smooth. Shared infrastructure gives the association certain rights. I turned slightly toward him. On shared land, I said. Not mine. Silence again. But this time it was heavier. Because now the inspector was part of it. Watching. Listening. Writing. Linda took a breath, then shifted her approach. We are trying to avoid unnecessary escalation, she said. That word again. Escalation. But it did not land the same way anymore. Not after yesterday. Not after the report. I nodded slowly. Then show him, I said, nodding toward the inspector. Show him the recorded document. That was the line. You could feel it. Linda did not answer right away. She looked at the man. He looked at her. Then both of them looked at the inspector. And he did not say a word. He just waited. That silence stretched longer than anything else so far. Because now it was not about convincing me. It was about proving it to someone who did not care about their authority. Only the record. Linda lowered the papers slightly. We are in the process of formalizing the filing, she said. There it was. Not filed. Not yet. I did not smile. I did not react. I just nodded once. So right now, I said, slow and clear. You have no recorded authority over my land. The inspector finally spoke. Is that correct? He asked, looking directly at Linda. That was the moment everything shifted. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just a simple question that could not be danced around. Linda opened her mouth, then closed it. For a second, the confidence was gone. Completely. We are working on it, she said. The inspector wrote something down. Quick. Final. Work on it, he said. Does not authorize excavation. The air went still. No wind. No movement. Just that sentence hanging there like a line nobody could cross. I looked back at the trench, then at Linda. You should stop, I said. Not as a threat. Not as a demand. Just as a fact. Because now it was no longer my word against hers. Now it was written. Not in my notebook. Not on my phone. But in a report that would not disappear. And the difference between those two things is everything. The inspector's pin stopped moving, and for a second, nobody said anything. You could feel it in the air. That shift. Not loud, not dramatic, just quiet and final. Linda looked down at the papers in her hand like they might suddenly change if she stared long enough. They did not. The man next to her cleared his throat, but this time, there was no smooth explanation ready. No polished line. Just silence trying to hold itself together. The inspector closed his notebook slowly. Not rushed. Not uncertain. Just done. I am issuing a temporary stop on any further work, he said. His voice was calm, but it carried weight. Real weight. The kind that does not come from confidence. It comes from authority that is actually written somewhere. Linda's head snapped up slightly. That is not necessary, she said quickly. Too quickly. The inspector did not even look at her. It is, he replied. Simple. Clean. No room for argument. I watched her face change in real time. Not panic. Not yet. But the control was gone. That steady, polished control she had been using since day one had slipped. Just enough for it to show. We are in the process of resolving this, she added, trying to regain ground. The inspector nodded once. Then resolve it, he said. Before anything else happens out here. That was it. No raised voice. No threats. Just a line drawn in the right place. And suddenly, that trench behind us did not feel like their project anymore. It felt like evidence sitting in the open. The man with the folder finally stepped back, like he was recalculating everything. We will comply, he said. Not confident. Not strong. Just careful. The inspector gave a short nod, then turned and walked back to his truck. No drama. No extra words. Just action. And that is when you know something is real. When it does not need to explain itself. The engine started, and he drove off, leaving the rest of us standing there in that quiet space he created. Linda did not move right away. She just stood there, papers still in her hand, staring at the trench like it had betrayed her. I gave it a second. Then I spoke. You should fill it, I said. Not loud, not aggressive, just direct. She looked at me, and for the first time, there was no smile at all. None. This is not over, she said. I nodded. I know, I replied. But this part is. That landed. You could see it. Because she knew it too. The man beside her shifted again, then leaned slightly toward her and said something under his breath. I did not catch the words. I did not need to. His tone said enough. They were already thinking about the next step. Not how to win. How to avoid losing more. Linda folded the papers once, sharper this time, and walked back to her SUV without another word. The man followed. Doors closed. Engine started. And just like that, they were gone. No machines came back that day. No new flags. No new papers. Just the trench, sitting there under the open sky, quiet again. But it was not the same quiet. As before, this one felt settled. I walked along the edge one more time, looking down at the water pooled at the bottom, reflecting the clouds moving slowly above. It hit me then. This whole thing was never about who talked louder, or who showed up with more people. It came down to something simple. Proof.